The issue of risk management, those of us who who support what you've done here, the issue of risk management a little differently, and figuring out, sort of how do we engage in this discussion about, what are real risks, and how we manage those in an effective way so that we can serve our communities better. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm not sure if there's a response needed. Maybe Dave or Gara or Judy.
I'm pro-risk. I'll come out of the closet as being pro-risk. No, look, there's a tension here. I mean, I think that you need a discussion about what risk is about. Doing something at a great scale is not necessarily risky. So it's not necessarily, you can make a big bet, but that's not necessarily a big risk. So I think that as philanthropy traditionally operates, putting money into grassroots organizations, which is kind of messy, and they may come back and kind of bite you, and more of it, as far as I'm concerned, would be good. That's seen in risky terms. So I think you're right to raise the issue in terms of risk. I think the other tension at this moment is, which is a very genuine one, it's not necessarily the subject of this event, but is, at a time when revenues are shrinking and you, as a grant maker, have a commitment to fields that you fund and groups that you fund, and you have less to go around, there's a natural tendency to kind of stick to your knitting and focus on the closest things. Is not necessarily a time which would inherently lead to innovation. And that is a problem. That's a danger I think grant makers have to be aware of. I think the people who will survive this period best are those who manage, on the one hand, to be loyal to the causes and the campaigns that they have identified themselves with, at the same time as they don't stop taking risks and doing new things. It would be very regrettable if one of the byproducts of this economic recession was to dry up all innovation and risk-taking by foundations.
And also, I would say that we're talking about risk from a very privileged place. I think it's very important to remember. To talk about risk of your endowment or risk of your job is different than risk of your community, your health. So I want to keep that, in mind as well. I think it would be terribly risky for all of us in philanthropy, all to do on Friday the exact same big, huge risk. That's not going to happen. What we'll do is we're encouraging people, each in their own small way, to think strategically how they can step up to the plate, at this moment. And so for the sector, we're not saying everyone take the same huge risk. We'll still be strong, I think, but we could do much better if we would each challenge ourselves from where we are, and to remember that we're not necessarily in the front line. We're supporting the folks that are really bearing the burden. And so let's step out of our comfort zone a little bit. The risk to us is going to be somewhat different from the risk of really struggling communities right now.
Yeah, and I just want to amplify the idea of risk. I think it is tremendously and dangerously risky not to be funding in marginalized communities right now. I think it's risky for the country as well as for individual organizations, funders. I think it's incredibly risky not to apply high standards of excellence to our own governance and to our own transparency in the same way that we expect out of our grantees. And it's unbelievably risky to parsimoniously slice and dice the work of effective organizations into projects and programs which we will underfund for too short a period of time for them to achieve. So I'm extremely risk averse for all those reasons.
Well, on that note, unfortunately, we're out of time. For the gentleman, I would invite you to talk to them after, because we have to start cleaning things out. But I hope you continue the conversation today, tomorrow, next week, in the coming months and years ahead. Thank you all for coming today.